Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're doing well, and today's a good one because 8.1 is releasing in just a few weeks, and unlike Rise of Nazjatar, 8.1 is a bit looser with its format. The big goal is to give you a bunch of pretty welcome tweaks, as well as a little bit of new content. So today I'm going to take you through the whole patch. Now, this patch is a little bit off. It comes out on the 12th of December, so you've probably got some free time, and here's a really great way to use it. So a few years ago, well, 5 years ago, I didn't know how to do any part of my job. I couldn't write well, I couldn't edit videos well, I was pretty much hopeless, but I was determined to work on a side project during my uni years. I think that having meaning in your life comes from doing meaningful work, and the best work is enabled by learning skills. Well, these days it's a lot easier. Skillshare exists. They are today's sponsor, and they are offering the first 500 people who sign up with the link below 2 free months of premium, which gives you unlimited access to courses done by pros in their field. It's the perfect platform to gain skills that maybe you wish you had, or finely tune the ones that you do have. Now, if you've got ideas floating around up there, you've got some lightning that needs a bottle, well, then I recommend checking out Productivity for Creatives, turning ideas into action. We've all got ideas, but acting on them is the problem. If you hit up the link below, you can get started with that course in mere minutes. It's really good. Okay, with all that, let's break down patch 8.1. Now let's kick it off by covering the new content of patch 8.1, as well as the main systems that tie into that content. So, first up, faction incursions. These are the Legion invasions of Battle for Azeroth. So they will spawn periodically throughout the week, and I would recommend hitting up Wowhead if you want to check out the schedule once they're live. They've got this feature called Today in Azeroth. It's actually quite handy for things like that. So from time to time, incursions will spawn in a zone. Now they're a lot more localized than the Legion invasions. They're typically focused in a sub-zone within a zone, such as say Borealis City. Now existing world quests in the area will go inactive, and a new set of ones will spawn in, and they'll all be themed around the incursion. Now, only one incursion spawns at a time across Zandalar and Kulturas, so that means one faction will have theirs being attacking, and the other one will be defending, and it will be like the same area, which means it'll be a great hunting ground if you are doing war mode. Now, players will get a quest to complete 4 world quests, but defenders will also have to do a final quest to fly up to the enemy airship and destroy it. And for completing this quest, you will be rewarded for your troubles. So, completing the meta quest for each incursion will give you a loot box that can contain a random 370 weapon or a bit of Azerite gear, and that gear is all from the Warfront pool. Now, these, much like the Legion invasions, are going to be quite useful for, say, leveling up fresh characters. So that's what's up with incursions. Next, we've got the Siege of Dazar'alor. This is the next new raid in BF8. Now, unlike prior raids, it's got unique content for each faction, with the theme being the Alliance attacking early on from the docks, and then the Horde fighting from the other side of the city to recapture it, and then drive the Alliance back away from the docks. Now, the order of bosses is quite interesting. There are 6 bosses for each faction, with 3 of them overlapping, for a total of 9 bosses in the raid. Now, it starts off with both factions fighting the Champion of Light boss. That's Frida Ironbellows for the Alliance, and Roani something for the Horde. Then boss 2 is Jadefire for Alliance and Grong for the Horde, and then boss 3 is Grong for the Alliance and Jadefire for the Horde. Then the next 3 bosses, Treasure Guardian, Conclave of the Chosen, and King Rastakhan, are Alliance only, but they are experienced by both factions because Horde players will talk to an NPC who canonically witnessed the fight, and they'll be able to replay that fight kind of like a flashback. And when that happens, their characters will be faction swapped over to Alliance, even including racial abilities. Anyway, after those 3, then Mekatork, Stormwall, Blockade, and Jaina are Horde only bosses. This means that Alliance players will now talk to their NPC, and they'll play through those as a flashback. It might all seem a little bit convoluted, but basically it allows for separate faction stories that converge with a pretty much an identical boss order, and it's pretty smartly done. Now, this raid does not release on the 12th of December, like with most modern WoW patches. The raid is paced to come out at a later date, likely pretty early in Q1 of 2019. Given the ulterior progression, I think December would be pretty, it would be way too soon. Now, like with all raids, this brings, of course, new sets of armor, as well as a really cool mech mount that drops from Mekatork, and an elemental mount that drops from Jaina. Next up, the War Campaign. So it's receiving a new chapter in 8.1. This will cover the events leading up to the new raid, as well as the aftermath, and perhaps even some of the lead-in to the second raid, the Crucible of Storms. Now, the War Campaign contains some particularly interesting content for the Horde, because Blizzard are experimenting with actually giving players a narrative choice that matters, but we're not going to get into spoilers. But anyway, I mentioned the Crucible of Storms, so let's talk about it. It's a 2-boss raid that technically is in patch 8.1, but you're not going to see it for a while. This raid is focused on Ashara and the old gods. There's like a lot of, I think, very major lore that's going to happen here, but once again, we're going spoiler free. Now, chances are it will release maybe halfway through Battle for Azeroth Season 2's content cycle, and its final boss, I guess it will be the Helya to Emerald Nightmare Xavius, you could say. Next, Heritage Armor. We have 2 sets of Heritage Armor, which both come along with some new quest content. Now, you will need to get Exalted with Ironforge and Silvermoon to unlock this stuff, and you can work on that right now, but once that's done, the quests themselves are pretty quick. Next, we have the Darkshore Warfront. Yep, we have another full Warfront added to the game. This does not replace Stromgarde, though. Basically, this means you'll actually have double the availability of all Warfront content, including, well, you know, the Warfronts themselves, the world content in either of the 2 zones, and the things like the hand-ins, which are a great way to get Azerite. So there's a short questline that leads into this Warfront that comes with a big new cinematic that you probably saw during BlizzCon. Now, the Warfront is a little different to Stromgarde mechanically, but it should feel fairly familiar, I suppose. So that's it with the Warfront. Of course, there will be world content there and all of that stuff. And likely, you know, while the Alliance is attacking Stromgarde, they'll maybe be doing the world content in Darkshore, and it'll just kind of, you know, flip in a decently even pace. So that's mostly it for the new content, but that's far from the full story because this patch is doing a lot for game systems, a lot of really important stuff, so let's get into that. Okay, first up, alt friendliness features. These are pretty damn important in this patch. There's quite a lot here. So first, the reputation requirements for using gear have kind of been lifted, meaning that, as an example, if you unlock a tabard on your main and then you know, you want to wear it in your alt, you probably will be able to. They've also lifted the level requirement from many cosmetic sets, so overall it means your alt should look a little bit more snazzy. Next, Blizzard are also adding BOA flight books, so you send those to an alt, the alt uses them, and unlocks flight points, which will be a nice little boost to leveling speed. They're also making the Champions of Azeroth Heart of Azeroth item level increase account-wide. Next, we've got to talk about leveling because Blizzard have implemented fairly massive leveling changes in this patch. So, experience requirements have been nerfed across the board for pre-BFA content, averaging about a 25% reduction, but peaking actually at 40% between level 60 and 65. Overall, it's a massive decrease to leveling time that's also being helped up by some new heirloom options. Then for level 110 plus content, we have a new experience potion that comes from one of the new currencies, the Honorbound / 7th Legion Commendation. You might be wondering what they are. Well, glad you asked. It's time to talk about them. These are a new currency that come from Warfronts and Incursions. At least that's what we think so far. Yeah, we kind of now have a currency for world content, kind of with the Incursions. It's a pretty good addition because it gives us deterministic progression while we're, you know, just doing stuff we probably would be doing anyway. Right now, there's 4 mounts. There's a red and blue Scorpion. There's a Horde Bat mount and a Armored Knight Saber for the Alliance. They also sell 380 rings with a Borealis or Dazar'alor teleport, and there's a new battle pet and 2 new cloaks. That's not all though with currencies because we've got Seafarer's doubloons. Okay, you already have them in 8.0, but 8.1 changes them a lot. So there's a new Seahorse and Albatross mount reward, as well as a bunch of toys, a battle pet, and of course all of the existing potions and elixirs that you can purchase today. This has the effect of making it a far more enticing currency. It ensures that you can get a dependable, you know, cosmetic reward from doing your island expeditions rather than just relying on the existing random ones. Next up, we've got a very big currency though, probably the biggest one of 8.1. This is part of Blizzard's solution to Azerite gear acquisition, so players weren't happy about how random it was from Mythic Plus, so Blizzard decided to overhaul things. Your end of the week Mythic Plus box will never contain Azerite gear. It will instead contain this new currency and, you know, of course, the item that you would normally get. Now, the amount of currency will depend on your keystone level, with the quantity scaling greatly based on keystone difficulty. As an example, a +10 would give you like over double the currency of a +7. And this kind of makes sense when you see the prices, you know, from the vendor. So first, we've got random slot-specific Azerite gear tokens. These give you a random bit of Azerite gear for a slot, and these come in a 355, 370, and 385 variant, with a 355 costing 127. 325, the 370 costing 400, and the 385 costing 1250. Now, Blizzard told us that completing a Mythic plus 10 would earn enough for one of those 385 tokens in 2 to 3 weeks. So the broad idea is that like 2 to 3 weeks of your, a keystone should give you a bit of Azerite gear that's appropriate for the Mythic plus keystone level that you're doing. So a plus 10 probably earns you about like 400 currency, which is enough to instantly get a random 370 for whatever slot you want, which could actually be really handy for filling in holes in your gear. That's not all though. You're also going to be able to purchase a specific item level 385 bit of Azerite gear. Yes, you can directly purchase your best in slot. However, these cost 3,250 currency, which is about like 5 to 6 weeks of Mythic plus 10 clears. Actually, no, maybe more like 7 or 8. Anyway, it's a lot. Now, the final piece of the puzzle, though, is that you can then put unwanted Azerite gear into the scrapper. This will destroy the gear and give you some of this new currency in return. Now, we're not exactly sure how it works in terms of the rate of reward, but personally I would expect a scrapped 370 to give a lot more than a scrapped 355. This could mean that doing emissary caches and incursions would be a decently viable source of this currency, but of course I'll have complete details for this closer to launch with my gearing guide. That's not all for Azerite gear though, no, because Blizzard are bringing in a new wave of Azerite gear with the Siege of Dazar'alor. This Azerite gear has a 5th ring that contains 6 traits, 2 for each spec. Now, the existing 4th ring that you have right now, that still does exist, and this means that each bit of Azerite gear will give you a choice between 2 of 3 total traits, up to a total of 6 spec-specific traits across all of your Azerite gear. Not only is that really quite powerful, but I suppose it does give you a bit more choice. Of course, choosing between 2 boring things isn't fun, and the good news there is that Blizzard have done some work to update the Azerite trait pool. They've removed some of the boring existing ones, and they've added in quite a lot of new ones that for the most part are more integrated with class mechanics, and they kind of have a more defined design that's easier to intuitively work out. It's a lot better than choosing between 2 slightly different versions of random damage. Now, this all releases with Battle for Azeroth Season 2, so let's just explain that concept. Season 2, this is how Blizzard are essentially describing the expansion's loot progression. Right now, we're in Battle for Azeroth Season 1. Season 2 will begin when the new raid opens, so when Season 2 launches, we'll see a few things. The Titan Forging cap is going to increase. Second, the general item levels for all the rewards in the game will increase. So as an example, the World Quest reward cap will increase. Same goes for emissary caches and incursion rewards. This will also all happen for PvP gear. If it's anything like Legion, we'll see normal, heroic, and mythic 0 dungeons have their difficulty increased to match the higher levels of loot that they'll drop. Now, the other big change, of course, is Azerite gear. Season 2 Azerite gear has the 5th ring, so if you do Mythic Plus when this patch releases on the 12th of December, it'll be the same gear that you get now. But if you do Mythic Plus once the Siege of Dazar'alor comes out, then you'll be getting Season 2 Mythic Plus gear, which therefore will have the 5th ring. So that is how the seasons work in BFA. Next up, Island Expeditions. So the overall system is the same, but the gameplay has been, they say, improved in a few ways. First, they are adding more varied events, and second, they are changing the island spawning such that enemies will be more clustered into camps, rather than being evenly spread across the island like they are right now, such that you're almost always followed by a procession of cantankerous crocodiles that want to, eat you. So that should be good. Next, global cooldown changes. So, while this was BFA's original drama, Blizzard have decided to revert much of the remaining abilities in 8.1. Specifically, movement abilities and utility abilities are going to be pulled off the GCD again, while offensive buff cooldowns will generally remain. So no longer will you use an ability, have something random happen, and then have to wait 1.5 seconds for the GCD in order to use a movement or utility spell. Overall, a really fantastic change. Next, we've got the Season 2 Mythic Plus affix. So this is going to be active once Siege of Dazar'alor in Season 2 comes out, and that means Infested is gone and the new one, Reaping, is in. This Bomb Samedi themed affix causes dead enemies to come back to life and give their nearby allies a damage reflect. Now, this only seems to happen periodically, so it won't have a very high uptime, and it basically is just going to be a priority mob to kill first, and it's only active on 10 and above. But that's not all. We're still going in this video, there's so much stuff. Okay, let's round off just some of the miscellaneous stuff that's happening in 8.1. So, Island expeditions have had a bunch of new mounts added to their random loot tables, so in combination with the currency changes, this should make them a little bit more rewarding feeling. Now for transmog, well, restrictions are being loosened for fist weapons, so you'll be able to mog one-handed weapons over fists, which as a monk main is a very nice thing to have happen. Next, for hunters, you'll be able to tame Krogs and Blood Feasters, and then in the visual front, we've got updated spell animations for the paladins, as well as new casting animations for dots, so they should feel a good bit more impactful than they currently do. And then moving back to Legion content, Blizzard are doubling reputation gains from world quests, basically to make it easier for new players to go back and unlock the Legion allied races. So overall, it's quite clear that 8.1 does a lot for the game, and pretty much all of it is positive. Now personally, I am salty that we can't swap Azerite traits using a normal talent consumable, but bar that, I think it's a great set of additions. This patch for me is going to be enough that I'm going to end the break that I'm on with the game. I will be back properly. Basically, it's just so clear to me that BFA will be flat out better as of 8.1, so I'm kind of okay to chill out and dabble in other games until then. That's really it for the video. Again, a massive thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring. I use them a lot personally, it's helped me out a lot, and also by sponsoring the channel, they're really helping out with the game development work that we're doing, so it's pretty awesome. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.